There are 1,400,000,000 Chinese. That's not a typo. 1 billion with a B, 400 million Chinese. Yes. And many of them grew up without property after, Beijing started changing its view towards capitalism. The way things are going now, your latter scenario is more likely. I mean, there is the European scenario, there is the Asian scenario, there is the Western Hemisphere. There are varieties of spheres of influence that could be, because I don't see, in the 60s, the 50s and 60s, there was the US dollar because of what happened in the Second World War and after. So it was very clear who was riding up to replace the pound. I don't see that happening now. Yeah. So I would suspect it's going to be spheres of influence or spheres of currencies, if you want to look at it that way. And eventually one of them will come out on top, either after a war, after its depression or something. Some kind of historic event will take place, somebody will then suddenly rise to the top over the various regions. But again, I don't know. I don't know who or what or when. We all know the problems, the political and economic problems of the US dollar. It's not a secret. Everybody knows it, and everybody knows that people are looking. It's being accelerated. I mean, the Ukraine war has accelerated this surge because of what the US did. They just seized assets. They blocked assets of innocent people. They just said, we suspect something's up, and they seized their assets or blocked their assets. So many people, this movement is being accelerated by Washington's our actions, I hate to say. So yes, it just makes, and many people know that gold has been around for centuries. And by the way, silver has been much more often used as the backing for currencies throughout history. I mean, Jesus Christ was sold for 30 pieces of silver. Yeah. He wasn't sold for 30 pieces of gold. Well, actually, the U.S. currency, when America was founded as a nation, the U.S. dollar was first backed by silver. It was a silver-backed currency in 1792 when we set up the monetary system, et cetera. So the silver has been around and more common. China in the 1930s was a silver-based economy. Many places have been silver, but it doesn't matter whether it's silver, gold, or seashells. People come up with something to back the currency. It makes sense because people, as I've explained before, what are we going to do? And people, they look around, they don't see anything else, so they say, well, why don't we back a currency with something real? Everybody knows what gold is, silver, wheat, whatever it happens to be. So it is a very likely scenario that people will try for a while, especially if we have more and more problems and crises. And eventually, a gold-backed currency has problems too. That's why they always get changed. And the politicians, it's too hard for the politicians. They say, oh my gosh, this is too hard. So they change the rules. They're always changing the rules. So then they will get rid of the gold standard again, or the silver standard, or whatever. They don't want to be disciplined. There was a study not so long ago that showed that the American politicians, when they were kids, they excelled at playground. They were the best kids during recess at playground. So that's why they become successful politicians. They don't know what they're doing, and they want the easy way. So yes, the easy way at one point seemingly may be gold or silver-backed currencies, but eventually that causes discipline, and they change the rules again. Well, yeah, again, it's historic. As you pointed out, the Egyptians once upon a time, as I pointed out, the Americans once upon a time, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, for historic reasons mainly, I mean, India is a gigantic consumer of gold and silver for many reasons, for many decades. The Chinese are becoming more and more gold-oriented and more silver-oriented. But this, again, it's historic. You go through periods when you get suspicious about your government or suspicious about your currency. They know. I mean, I'm an old peasant, Adam, and all of us old peasants know that when things get bad, we want some gold under the closet, under the bed. We want some silver in the closet. We know, because all of us old peasants have been around long enough to know what goes wrong. So, and right now in Asia, they see what's happening for whatever reason more vividly than we seem to in the West. And they are, not just Asia, but many people are buying more and more gold and silver and putting it under the bed, putting it in the closet, including me. Well, I mean, the numbers are very clear for anybody who wants to look them up and read. Yes, it's happening. Just anecdotally, when I first came to China, or even decades ago, it was hard to buy gold in China. Now there are many gold shops, many banks. You can go in and they will sell you gold coins, gold, silver coins. I mean, it's very easy now because the demand is obviously there. These shops wouldn't crop up, these banks wouldn't pop up unless there was demand. So yes, I mean, you and I read the same statistic. These numbers are easily available. The Indians are buying, a lot of Asians, yes, Westerners too, but especially Asians who have lived through periods of bad times. Well, you'd have to ask the people who are doing it. I don't know, but I would just suspect historically, yes, you know as well as I do that when people are losing a lot of money in a gigantic asset like real estate, they look for something to save themselves. It increases their level of anxiety. And gold and silver have been around for centuries. Yes, it's very clear. There has been a bubble in Chinese property. And by the way, Beijing for a long time has talked about it and tried to do something about it unsuccessfully. Now, whether it's the market or Beijing or who, something is happening and that bubble is popping. And it's good. When all real estate bubbles pop, as you know, it goes on a long time and a lot of people suffer badly. There are 400 million Chinese. That's not a typo. 1 billion with a B, 400 million Chinese. It's a huge country. It's the size of the continental 48 states, so it's huge. Yes, and many of them grew up without property after, Beijing started changing its view towards capitalism. Huge numbers of people went into property and real estate.
Wow.
And now there are going to be consequences.